Welcome back to the channel, and if you're new here, welcome. We're out here checking on the greenhouse. We had some seriously cold temperatures overnight. Now don't let the sun fool you, it's freezing out there. I had already shed my coat and stuff. I've been out here working. It is 65 in here, 66 degrees in the greenhouse. We got those temps because of the sun and because of all of the systems we're running in here. So we're sitting about 58, minimum of 47 last night. That's pretty darn good, especially for the mid-range of the greenhouse. Down at like knee height is where that thermometer's at, so being able to pick up about 58 degrees, looks like that's the warmest it's been. We were between 47 overnight, and we had about 9 degrees, maybe 10 degrees overnight, with a wind chill factor of about 0 or 1 or 2 degrees. So it was darn cold. The first winter blast we had. We saw a little bit of cold damage to our potatoes at that 47 to 45 because that's in the middle of the greenhouse. We've got our door here. So these are our 2-month potatoes. We actually got a harvest of potatoes, and it's not too bad. There's a few there. You can see some little babies. We got about a dozen potatoes or so. These potatoes really like that heat. So in order to produce a lot of potatoes, they need a lot of heat and a lot of warm nights. So moving forward from this little experiment here, it wasn't the best harvest. You could probably eat these little guys too. But I've learned a lot from this just by observing these potatoes so frequently in the greenhouse. They've survived the last 2 months. We've had freezing temperatures outside. We've got some other potatoes that are still alive. They were planted about a week and a half after these ones, and they're literally only that tall. When the shoots off of these plants were definitely full grown, they started to flower on us. They wanted to put little flowers off, so I had to make the call. I didn't want them to go too long, get cold damaged, and then we didn't have a good harvest because they're starting to rot in the ground or something. So I kind of pulled the trigger a little early on this one, but we've got potatoes, and that's what really matters. I wanted to check this out, and I basically just pulled the whole front side of this bed off, and you can see the largest potato I planted. We grew the smallest potato off of this largest, and you can see all those little baby potato plants. Like I said, this was the largest potato we grew. This thing is massive. It's like fits in my whole hand here. So this is the only one that really didn't produce a lot. We only got little tiny potatoes like this and these little guys that are not fully developed yet. So just taking a look at the soil in this bed, if I can get it to focus, a little bit of potting soil and stuff, but it is super fine. All of this is just like sand, basically. I can move it around freely. It's just free flowing. So what I'm going to be doing with all of these tops is cutting them up real finely and possibly putting them in some type of 5-gallon bucket sealed to basically ferment them real quick in a hot greenhouse. And then I can throw them in our methanizer and turn them to methane faster. So I want to kind of run around and just give an update on the greenhouse. We have all of our systems. We've got our electricity running. I've been sharing all the little bits and pieces here, and I really just want to check this out. So this is a tomato surviving on this tank. I've showed this before, but we had frigid temperatures, and that little guy is still alive, living in the shade. So I really like just sharing all the little bits and pieces of little growth, things that will and can grow that shouldn't be. So we are definitely keeping this greenhouse warmer than normal. It's definitely warmer in here overnight now than it was when we only had 1 layer on this thing. That double layer just really helps us out. It insulates all of the heat, and it gives us a little better insulation as opposed to just having that 1 layer of poly, losing all your heat all the time. This potato bed is going to be basically revamped, taken apart, and we're going to plant more plants inside this tunnel, some cold weather crops there. Just panning down, everything's doing wonderfully in here. It all looks so good. We can harvest from this little microclimate and eat some food. Lots and lots of life popping up. We got to get watered in here so we have better sprouting on some of this, but lots of life coming up in here. It just looks awesome. It's a little dry right now. So jumping over to our other raised bed that was dismantled to put more layers on our potatoes down there for more heat and just a higher bed level. So we swapped a whole bunch of pieces. We took these windows that were as a cold frame on our potatoes over there, and we've still got potatoes in here. We're gonna check all this out real quick, but just moving all these windows around really allow me to sprout stuff and keep stuff from dying, like these potatoes in here. I was worried how cold it was going to get in here last night because I didn't start a fire, and we were basically just running off our John Payne, geothermal, and passive solar heating. So based off all of those, we had 47 degrees overnight, which is darn phenomenal for a greenhouse that is made of plastic poly. Let's check out this cold frame. It is just windows propped up together. Super simple A-frame, like a teepee. Trying to come through, you can see this is a potato right here. Amongst all the kale and stuff, I don't know how well it's doing. See another potato right there. There's a couple more throughout this little bed here. It's very interesting to be able to see these potatoes. See my reflection there. It's interesting to be able to see the potatoes survive, because these are not a cold weather potato. They are basically a warm season. You can see this one here suffered a little cold damage. Maybe it's from being so close to the outside of this little cold frame here, but I'm really just interested to see what happens with this. Everything is purely experimental, as with those potatoes, just to see what I can do, and it just gives me a little bit of insight into what I can plant and what I can do inside the greenhouse going into the winter and starting up winter. We had our tomato experiment. Now this bed is completely transformed to cold crops, has a nice row cover on it. Everything in this little microclimate looks wonderful. Some good sproutage there. Geothermal's been blowing up underneath the tunnels. I have these picked up here because it is darn warm in here and I want good airflow and circulation. Now I'm pretty stoked about how well all of this works and how little work it takes once I get these things in place. All of our systems, our covers, all of our plants planted accordingly and in time. Transplanting in the winter can be a little tricky. If you are trying to sprout in winter, it can be tricky. And having all these in the ground before the cold comes in allows them to really expand their roots, and having all that warm soil allows it to really take hold and allows it to be a little bit more hardy as the cold temps come in. One of my favorite crops is heading collards. It tastes like broccoli, I would say. A little bit like broccoli, not spicy or anything, but it's just a wholesome, awesome food to be able to cook with, kind of like kale. I really like the heading collards, so I suggest everybody tries growing those in winter because they really tolerate the cold, and they might take a freeze inside your greenhouse. I just want to jump down to the geothermal tube real quick. Hear that blowing away. See all those leaves quivering in the wind there. It is definitely blowing some good oxygen over these plants, doing what it's supposed to. So just jumping around a little bit as we go, we've got flowers on those strawberries coming down the whole greenhouse here. We've got strawberry flowers literally a foot from the outside of the greenhouse. The old rotten strawberry there, and we've got flowers. Pretty darn cool. Now that's not to say we're going to get strawberries. I'm just saying that we're keeping it warm enough that those are not going dormant and they're trying to produce fruit. They're just not having enough light. If I had some lights over the potatoes, I probably could have got better harvest. Just some red light to simulate sun. Maybe it could have popped those flowers faster or something. So I'm always learning, always experimenting, and this was just one more for the books here. So if anybody's got any questions on anything I walked around and covered today, there's going to be a whole lot of experiments coming. This little guy's getting set up this weekend. We're moving all the stuff around in this corner and getting 2 heating experiments going so we can pull some data and share all of the findings from those. So before this gets to be too long of a update here, I'd like to thank everybody, and thanks to all the new subscribers. Welcome aboard. We are trying to share everything we're learning and share everything, every little aspect, just so everybody can have a in-depth look and discussion about what we're doing. So I like to share all the little things, so hopefully it's not too boring, and I'm gonna let you guys go till next time.